What's going to get me 1 million followers? That's the wrong question, because we could get 1 million followers, but there's constraints.
There's a lot of people doing a lot of different things. And some things over here look really shiny and like, oh man, that's working great. And then you start to look at your own situation and you realize I need to lock in on what I'm working on here and focus on that. Mine is going to be just as shiny as everyone else's. Totally different, but still just as impactful.
But the biggest reason things will grow is because...
Well, welcome back to another episode of the Wealthy Creator Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Berry, and today this is a special episode, you all. Like, this is something that's I want you all to really, dive into this one, because this guy is, owns multiple 8-figure businesses, 7 and 8-figure businesses, owns, properties all over the country and out of the country now. He's doing major things, and I've learned so much from this individual. Right, and we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna jump into it. But he's not only the business owner, the entrepreneur, but he is a really good friend, right? An individual that I consider my brother. None other than Ryan Pineda. How's it going?
You're here, dude. I'm flattered I got the invite.
Yeah,
it's been a minute. Well, it's not been a minute. I've just been sitting here biding my time, waiting. To be on the podcast.
So let me tell you, I was saving this episode specifically because I didn't want people to just expect it, right? Like, I wanted it to kind of be a surprise, but I also wanted to be clear on get my reps in before I sat down with you, man. Like, this guy has done, how many episodes do you think you've done now for podcasts now? I mean,
so I don't know, hundreds.
Yeah, it's been hundreds of episodes. So I wanted to come correct when I sat down with you and have this conversation. Me and you talk so much, so it's like funny doing it like formally in front of cameras. But I do feel that people need to kind of get to see our relationship and things that have developed. So I'll start a little bit, and I'll let you all hear how I even got to know Ryan Pineda. For me personally, I was coming from a 9-to-5 job. I was working as a tech doing, money management with an armored truck company. All those words are just words. I really was just guarding other people's money and risking my life for it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. With a bulletproof vest and a gun. But I was doing that. I did that for about a year. And on the side, I was doing, I was offering editing services for a couple of retainers that I had. And through a mutual friend, shout out to Omar Eltakrori, but I was fasting at a time with the church. And I had mentioned to him that I was just looking to get out of that and have, an opportunity going full-time on content. And, the way God works, man, like he puts people in your life and people in places, and it's really just up to you to allow him to work, right? And so I remember during that fast, my fast wasn't necessarily for me to work with Ryan Pineda or work with an influencer. My fast was for me to one, be blessed enough to be able to bless others. Right. And specifically financially, I was like, I just want to be able to help other people and offer up, in any way that I could. And financially doing that 9-to-5 job, that was impossible. I was check to check and paying bills, and that was it. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted the opportunity to be able to do that. I prayed that I would be able to tithe correctly, right? Right. Without being hungry at the end of it. You know what I mean? And even though, I always been, a guy in church and strong in faith, it's hard when you don't have it. Right. And I'm not going to pretend that I had it all together. But I definitely was looking for that opportunity. And the way God works is amazing, because on day 10 of that fast, Omar sent me a screenshot of your post on social media that you were looking for an editor. Mm-hmm. And I DM'd you, and then the next day we talked. Yeah. So just as the fast was ending, I wasn't hungry anymore. I had just ate. You called me and we talked. And I was actually on the way home from the job. And so we talked in the car, and then we met. And one thing I always tell people in that meeting, which is what I really found like, okay, this is God telling me that this is right, is that we talked more about faith and family than we did about the job, right? Mm-hmm. You covered the job really quickly. You asked me what I was capable of and what I can do and what I was looking to do. But a lot of our conversation then went into other things. And so there was a lot of power in that. What were your thoughts, when when Omar may have texted you, or because you did some other things too I'm going to talk about, but tell me your thoughts when you were looking for an individual to start your podcast with.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I've hired a lot of people over the years, and I make the joke to everyone else. I'm like, hey, everyone I hire, there's way less turnover than everyone you guys hire. And maybe that's me making sure they succeed for my own reputation or, maybe I'm just good at judging talent. But no, when Omar texted me, at that point, he had already helped me get a few people, I think. So, yeah, I think at that point, or I can't remember, I don't know, you might have been the first or
one of the first,
some people, but he's at this point now, if he sends me somebody, I'm like, all right, like I already know who he is, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, with Omar, him and I, we weren't like super close friends yet. We had met the year before. It's not like we had been friends forever. But, I knew he obviously knew what he was doing with video and everything. And so I will take referrals more than anything because, dude, if somebody's willing to put their name on it and you trust that person, then you would expect it'll be pretty good. I don't put my name on people, very rarely.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, I already had this trust built in that you could do the job. It wasn't about, whether or not you could do the job. I didn't even ask to see your edits.
No, you didn't.
Or anything. I was like, okay, if Omar thinks he's good enough to do edits, because that's Omar's specialty, then I already know he's good enough. It's just a matter of two things for me. One, do I like this guy? And is he, going to be a guy that I'm going to be around with a lot? And two, is he going to be a guy with me for the long haul? Because I knew this wasn't a thing where I was like, dude, all I need is an editor. And that's what most people who get into content, they're very short-sighted. Yeah. I need an editor today, but this guy's like, whatever. Just somebody edit the videos. It's more like just kind of like a secondary piece of the business. And so, when you came in, I asked you, hey, you want to do the job? Cool. All right. How long you been doing this stuff? But, really what I wanted to know was what was the purpose for why you wanted to do this and why were you going to quit? And, I ask people that a lot, even in our students, I ask them, hey, why do you want to create content? What's the purpose? And it's because it's hard. Like running a business is hard. Working for me is hard. Creating content is hard. Nothing that's good is easy.
Yeah.
So I wanted to know whether or not you were going to be able to handle what I was about to throw at you. Yeah. Because if you were just kind of like wishy-washy, because you could still be a nice person who's talented, but you're wishy-washy. And I've had those people, and they never last. Because if you're wishy-washy and your purpose isn't strong, you're not going to handle what I'm about to throw at you.
Yeah.
And, that's why I was asking those questions. And I remember you said something along the lines of, yeah, dude, I'm doing this armored truck thing. I don't get paid much money at all. My wife is doing this job and I want to be able to make enough for her to, quit this job. And like another thing for me too is I'm always thinking about the other person's needs and desires. And if I don't think I have an opportunity for them to do that, I already know inevitably it's going to end at some point. It's not going to be a long-term thing.
Yeah.
And so when you told me that, I said, okay, so like, what does she make? What do you make? And I'm like, all right, well, easily I could replace what you make now. That part's easy because you were, making nothing. Yeah. So I ended up looking at it. I'm like, okay, does he have the potential to hit his goals doing things with me? I mean, he's not going to do it today, but he has potential to do it if, we grow and do the things we're going to do. So I was like, all right, well, if you're ready for this, then this is what it's going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and like I said, I came into it like I didn't care what it was you threw at me. Yeah. I was like, all right, I'm in a situation now where I have to figure it out. I'm not getting younger. I got a family now, and I moved across the country from Chicago with no real assistance, right? Like I knew no one here. So the community at City Light was essentially my family. And then, coming here, helped me grow that as well. But yeah, I think, and this is for those that are listening that are looking to hire that person for them, that individual to help them with their content. When you look to hire, I've learned that it's important to understand the person's journey up until that point, and then understand what their focus is beyond that, right? Because a lot of that changes. Like my journey before the content in the media space was police, right? Like I went to school, I got the degree, I was set to start with Metro's Academy until I tore my patella tendon, and it's just shifted everything.
Yeah.
in hindsight, I'm understanding that this just wasn't God's plan, right? He didn't have that for me. He had something better. But at that moment, I'm just like, I got to figure it out. This is how I ended up at the armored truck company, because I'm like, I can still carry a gun and wear a vest and have some authority over something.
Yep.
Right. And then, once that shift happened, it was like, one, I lost all authority that I had. I ever could act like I had doing it. And then two, I realized coming into your organization that everyone here enjoys being here. Right. Like, it was extremely friendly. Right. And I was like, yeah, this coming from something as toxic as like, as like, dealing with armored trucks, and most of those guys are retired military and, of some sort.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, I can do this every day. And it really didn't feel like real work early on. Like, I didn't feel like I was working a job. I felt like I was being a part of something a lot bigger. You mentioned, let's just talk like technical, like what you threw at me early on, right? So this was the start of the Ryan Pineda Show podcast, which is now The Wealthy Way. And we were still filming at the time, the old set upstairs in your office. And I remember getting that hard drive with all of those videos on it. And they weren't organized. They were kind of all over the place. The lighting's bad. The audio's bad.
Yep.
Some of them are missing audio. Like, it was just all like chaotic. And it was 10 episodes, and you was like, we're trying to launch next week.
Yeah.
And mind you, you talked about the editing. You had never seen my editing. I don't even think Omar actually saw my editing up until that point. He just knew I had done it. And I was like, okay, I have to get this done. And I have to get this done decent enough for him to be like, okay, it's not the editor, it's everything else. And so, again, I looked at that as like, I didn't know for sure. I was like, I don't know if he's challenging me or if this is like a test on whether or not he's going to keep me here. But I was like, I'm definitely going to knock these out and get them done. And grateful that we had a successful launch on those first 10 for sure.
Yeah. No, I knew that just after researching podcast strategies that you always wanted to launch with a lot of episodes. And somebody's like, launch with 3, maybe 5. And I'm like, nah, dude, freaking, if I do it, I launch with double, triple what anyone else would normally do. So, I filmed 10 and I'm like, all right, we got to get these edited and let's launch this thing, man. What are we waiting for? And, a lot of people just don't really think like that. And I think that's one thing maybe, you'll see you can testify to behind the scenes, but it's like, I don't know where people get their standards from of like what they think is possible, but I hear them. I'm like, what are you talking about? Why? That makes no sense. Well, that's what I don't care what everyone else does. This is what we're going to do. And this is how it's going to get done. And this is when it's going to get done. And then all of a sudden, somehow it gets done. And I've seen it so many times that it's not weird to me.
You're right.
But people like just don't believe what they're capable of.
Yeah. It's living with limited beliefs on everything, like across the board, right? Like, it took me coming here to fully understand that. I think if I would have understood that back when I was still playing ball, things would be a lot different.
Yeah.
Right? Because I got to a point in college where like I was like, okay, this 6'8" guard that's dribbling this ball, I don't know that league is for me. Right? I'm like, something about this just doesn't think, it doesn't seem possible at this point, because this dude is 6'8", he's shooting threes from 6 foot behind the 3 line. It's just different, right? I think though, and in this space, I've seen where you got creators that are considered at a larger level than you are that come in and then they go, whoa, like y'all do that, or you do this, and like they're surprised at what they're seeing on some of the things that we're doing. And I'm like, yeah, because the level that they're at doesn't necessarily, like, they're limiting what they could actually be doing, right? Like they don't even fully know their full potential just yet. And so I've learned, in being around you the last 3 years is to always question it. Like, why
I always
not?
question everyone.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do, it's not my favorite, but it's like, I have no other way to phrase this, but you've seen it where I'm like, so what do you do all day?
Yeah, it's the worst question ever.
Yeah, like I somewhat say it like that, but I'll be like, explain to me what you did yesterday.
Yeah. Let me touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be interesting. It's kind of funny. The first time you did that to me, you don't know what that did for me the rest of that week. Like, dude, I was so mad. I was like, this dude just asked me. Like, I know he's seen, and it's funny because like truthfully, if I would have dialed back my own like pride,
Yeah.
I would have been like, he sees what I do every day. Like
Yeah.
I'm literally with him every single day.
Yeah.
We're filming, we're doing everything. Like there's no way these videos are going out if I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can't believe he asked me that. Like, and I remember going home talking to Ashley.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if he's asking me, am I doing my job or what? Like, what the question? And then it actually took her being like, well, Justin, what do you do? And I was like, oh, wow, like that's a real question. I need to be able to answer it.
Yeah.
And so now if you ask me now, I got a list of things I'm going to answer with, but it's just so that I understood it. And it also made me realize that I had not reached my capacity yet.
Yep.
That like now I can add to this and actually I'll be glad to tell them exactly what I do.
Yeah.
You know, the next time this question comes up. But boy, that question got me for like 3 days. I was like,
it gets
what's
everyone.
up with this guy, man?
Well, it gets everybody, and they think that their job's in jeopardy. And maybe it is, but
sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is, but really, I ask high performers that, and I get it from coaching and students and everything too, because obviously they're already achieving a level of success, and they're like, "Dude, I want to do better, and I want to get to the next level." I go, "Okay, well, let's start with what do you do all day?"
Yeah,
that's the way I ask it. I'm like, "What do you do all day?" I mean, how can you achieve more if I don't even know the full picture of how you spend your time? Because that's the only way you achieve more is changing how you spend your time.
Yeah.
And so the real root of the question is, what can we do to optimize your abilities and your talents and everything? And so I literally do that with everybody. I do it with Javi and Brian. I was doing it earlier today with the media team. And I'm like, guys, and then, some people get really offended. And I'll be like, no, look, trust me, I know you work hard. I didn't ask you if you work hard or not.
Right.
What I'm asking you is what you actually spend your time doing. Because hard work does not mean you're productive.
Yeah.
And if you are working hard and you're not even close to being as productive as you could be, then there's a major issue because you're putting in all this hard work for no reason.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. And I've taken that and I've implemented that with my team. And it's funny kind of seeing the reaction sometimes because it's like, I know that feeling. Like I know exactly what you're feeling right now. But more importantly, what it does is it makes them create a schedule for themselves. Yeah. And it's like, okay, this is what I did yesterday. But now that I'm looking at the time spent, I know I could do a lot more. And I know at doing a lot more, again, everything increases at that point. The level just goes up every single time. And
that's the whole point of the wealthy way, and Omar actually helped me realize that when I did his podcast. He's like, dude, you know what you really are is like a productivity guru. And I was like, yeah, I guess I could be a self-help guy. But it's true, right? Because the whole point of the wealthy way is basically understanding how you spend your time.
Yeah.
And if I could rebrand it to that, I would have probably done that instead now that I've really experienced what the wealthy way is and explaining it over and over.
Yeah.
Because it's not really an entrepreneur book. It's like a time management book of, well, first off, what do you think is a priority in your life? Because you tell me something is a priority and I'll ask you about it and you can't answer the question. Yeah. And it's like, well, how big of a priority is it then? Like you say, this is a priority. What? You're fat. Don't tell me your health is a priority. You literally could not be fat if your health was a priority.
Right.
And it just is what it is.
Yeah.
And it's a goal, but it is not a priority. Those are two different things. And so in order to figure out what a priority actually is, you look at what you've actually done, not what you want to do. And so, it's like, that's the first question. Tell me what you did yesterday. Just give me yesterday. Yeah. I don't even need to hear. Tell me like the best, most productive day of your life. Let me see that. And then let me see like a normal day. And you'll start to notice that people don't spend their time efficiently. And if I'm trying to create an organization that's moving at a quick pace and a fast pace, but also a sustainable pace. Because one thing about our company that's different is that, yes, we move really fast and, we got high achievers, but once again, we don't, nobody's here on the weekends, people are leaving at 5, people are getting here. Like, I don't have this culture of you better be here all night doing your thing. Yeah. But I do have a culture of you better still figure out a way to get all the stuff I want you to get done. Yeah. And I don't want you to do it in 80 hours. I want you to figure out how to do it in the confines of the culture.
Yeah. Because I think you understand and you've basically allowed the rest of us to understand that if you do it efficiently, it doesn't take the 80 hours.
No.
Right? Like I had to learn that because it was having an impact on my marriage, how much time I was spending on the brand.
Yeah.
Right, especially when I initially became the producer and kind of overseeing the team, I was spending so much time not only communicating. Right, there was times where Ashley was like, "Is that Ryan again? Put the phone down." Right, but I didn't know the boundary. Right,
Yeah.
like, and you know it, right? Like, there's some times where I'm just not going to answer right now.
Yeah.
Right, because of the relationship. But then there's other times where it's like I have to communicate with the rest of the team as well. So not only am I talking to you, but this needs to get to them right away. And then this becomes a bunch of questions from them. And so figuring out how to have the most efficient day changed everything. Now, if I don't always need to be here till 5 anymore, right? And I have that ability to make that decision. Usually I stay because I want to find more to do, right? Again, it goes back to making sure that you're getting the most out of the time. But that's a situation where it's like, okay, if I'm not making the most out of my time and I'm not actually having impact on the day, then I'm not fulfilling what I'm supposed to do. And so nothing gets done at that point, right? Like it feels like you just did bare minimum. And it doesn't usually show and kind of peek its head up that that's happening for months. But when it does, it's very obvious, right? Like it turns it obvious. So I learned that and I was like, I'll never let that happen again, where it will never come in question whether or not stuff is getting done.
Yeah.
People just have to learn that.
Yeah, they have to learn that. And I think it goes back to figuring out what is the most optimal thing you can do for your role. So like when you first start off in a role in most companies, it's purely labor and not skill.
Yeah.
So in the creation space, okay, a labor role would be editing. It's like, this is just purely labor edits. As your skill gets better, you develop new roles. And so now we're talking about strategy and management and things that really move the needle. And those skills are far more valuable than the skills of just editing. The same is true with, real estate investing. It's like the least paid skill would be, the admin. They're pushing paper and doing transaction. Like it is what it is. It's a low skill thing.
Yeah.
A higher skill thing would be being a salesperson and figuring out how to negotiate and structure deals and all of that. And, the next level up there is like, all right, well, now you're, managing a big team. And, if you want to move all the way up to my position, which is at the top, it's like, all right, when I look at what do I do all day, I ask myself the same question. I'm like, I've been pretty busy, but what did I do all day?
Yeah.
And you even asked me on Tuesday, this was the Tuesday after Christmas, you're like, are you even coming in? Because my calendar had 0 on it.
Yeah.
But
I had never saw that before, by the way. Like, as long as I've had access to your calendar, I've never seen it where it's completely, empty.
There was literally nothing. And I was like, yeah, I'm coming in. I already had all these things in my mind I was going to do. Now, did I have to go, time block them out to do them? Like, Ryan, you've never seen that on my calendar.
No.
Where it's like, Ryan's working on this task for an hour. Right. And this task, basically what my calendar looks like is, if I have a meeting or a podcast, it's there.
Yeah.
Everything else is open, but it's not like I do nothing.
Yeah, it's not really open.
It's not open. I just have my own internal task list of things I need to do. And that's where the money's made, because I have to decide what is the most important task. There's a million things I could do. What's the most important that moves the needle today? And so when you're thinking from the top down, the most important task usually is a process-driven task or a training the top level people type task. And so like, for instance, when I first set out to go build out, our media side, I said, hey, let's all sit together for a week. And I want you to explain to me how, media teams are built. I was like, what? I literally was like, who's the top guy?
Yeah.
What's he called? What's he do?
Yeah.
Would you say the director or the producer? Who has more power? And like, explain to me how hierarchy and all this works. And so, we built an organizational chart and I said, okay, this is how it's going to run. And I said, you're this, you're this, you're this. And I built out the entire thing. And then it really hasn't deviated much from that. But that 1 week of me really focusing in on this produced everything that you see today, 3 years later, because I took the time to build out a process and a system right. And then obviously there's tweaks and everything that come along the way, but we had an actual framework to work from that created what it created today. What most people do is they don't do that. They're just like, all right, well, freaking, let's just make some videos. And they keep running with a broken system for years. And guess what? You do that. Yes, you can get results, but guess what? I'll get 5 times the results because I built it right from the beginning.
Yeah. Outside of like, speaking of our events like a WealthCon or the workshops that we do here in office, that's like the number one question outside of content. It's like, how's your team set up? That's always a question. And we always present like those organizational charts because you don't know what you're actually missing until you do that, right? Like building that out showed us like, okay, there's holes. Right now, we're videographers, we're editors, we're doing it, the majority of the work, the labor and the back end, right? And then we were like, okay, we should probably get actual editors in here, right?
Yep.
Like people that we can oversee now so that we're not trying to film and then come back to the office and edit, right? Like you don't know what you're missing though until that's created. And so it helped tremendously with setting up our system for sure.
Yeah, and I think the thing is always testing too. So I've never once been afraid to test or spend money or do anything because to me, once again, a test is, I would rather know it doesn't work today versus wondering if it doesn't work or even finding out it doesn't work 2 years from now.
Yeah.
I would rather just figure it out today. Yeah. And so, I've hired guys, I've hired consultants, we've tried things that flopped, we've tried things that have worked. And, the cool thing about things that work in business is that you only need one to work. So like if you find one thing that works really good, freaking crank it to the bank. And that's all that matters. And so a lot of people are just afraid to try new things. And that's never been our problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to reflect too. I want to go into this past year, 2023, but I also want to just reflect on some of the things that we've experienced even before that, right? When individuals ask me about what type of content, like they're unsure what type of content to make. And I tell them, like, we've tried it all. Like, there's not a specific type of content outside of me still trying to get him to do his food channel. But, like, other than that, we've done everything. We've vlogged. We've done talking heads. We've done dynamic home tours, right?
Car videos.
And we've done everything that you can imagine that you see on these platforms.
Flip Nation.
Yeah, I mean, the Flip Nation videos still hit. You can do one of those right now and they'll still do good, right?
Yep.
We've tried it all, and the reason behind that is because, one, he's willing to, right? Most people aren't, right? And most people aren't willing to put in the work that it takes to keep changing and adjusting and doing different things. But two, it's because these platforms change all the time.
Yeah.
Right? What they require from the creator to actually see success does shift. And so we now have landed on podcasting. But looking back into 2023, I think early on in the year, we were still kind of figuring it out. Like we couldn't figure it out just yet. Like we were trying to get it together on what exactly would work, not only for the channel, but for you specifically.
Yep.
And then that question was brought up by one of the consultants, like, what are you willing to commit to? Which is a great question, right? And now that I'm kind of have seen how that works, I ask that question all the time, not only to the wealthy creator community and the students and the one-on-ones that I do, but I ask that question even to those that are here, like a Javi, like a Brian, right? What are you willing to commit to? Because I can take that and figure out what would be the best option as far as the type of content that you're making. And so we've landed on podcasting, but looking back, right, it wasn't that you didn't like doing all of the different types of videos, right? Was it more of just it didn't make sense to the time that you were spending doing it?
Well, I think the first part of what you explained, people probably didn't even catch. And it's that you first started with the constraint in mind. And this is back to what we've been talking about with productivity. And so the first way I always backtrack what I'm willing to do is, what are my constraints?
Okay.
And so if you had unlimited money and unlimited time, you would do things very differently than if you have limited money and limited time, which we all have. Because think about it, Mr. Beast, he basically has unlimited money. And so he does things a certain way, but he only has a certain amount of time, right? So he has to make whatever videos he makes. Yeah. If Mr. Beast had unlimited time, he might release a video every day, right? Like it just, you're always going to be capped by your constraint. Now, that also is important for, you to understand that constraint, because some people don't know their constraints and then they burn out because they're like, oh, well, dude, I'll go every day. I'll do it, whatever it takes to win. It's the wrong answer. you can do that for a period of time, but you cannot build the whole foundation off a false premise. So, for example, when I see people in real estate, and I always relate things to different metaphors so people can really understand it.
Yeah.
When I see people in real estate who fix the houses themselves, it's like, yeah, for sure, you're going to save money, you're going to make more money this deal. But you're building your business on a false constraint that you could just do that on every deal. Mm-hmm. That's the wrong way to do it. Build it on something sustainable. And so when we had this conversation in 2020, the beginning of 2023, I had already now had experience to say, well, here's what is sustainable for me. Here's what I enjoy doing. I don't have to make content. So do I have a big enough reason to try and like go do all these other things? No, I don't. I just literally don't care. Mm-hmm. And also I have these constraints in mind of, hey, this is how often I'm willing to film. You know, this is what I'm willing to do. And these are the constraints. So what's the best move based on the constraints?
Yeah.
That's how you figure out your plan. Not, you know, what's going to get me 1 million followers? That's the wrong question, because we could get 1 million followers. We could do prank videos. We could do, you know, yeah. Like if 1 million followers was the thing we were aiming for, there's lots of ways to go there, but there's constraints. Okay, sure. Yeah, we want to get to 1 million followers one day, but, you know, what kind of people? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, if they're going to be business people, how do you get those people to, you know, 1 million? And, you know, how quickly could you do it? What would you have to spend? What would you have to do? How much would you have to reinvent yourself? How many things would you have to try? You know, are those 1 million people going to even buy from you? Like, what's the deal here? So, yeah, what we were really solving for was, these are the constraints. Now that you have experience, what's the best move going forward from here?
Yeah.
And what we basically decided was that, yeah, I don't want to do home tours. I don't want to like leave the office. Yeah, do those videos get more views? Yes, but I don't, it didn't matter, mm-hmm. you know? And then we started to also look at the future, and we said, where do we think the future is headed? And if you're going to make a move, you got to be anticipating many moves ahead. And so for me, I looked at the future and I said, dude, I actually think the podcast is going to be bigger than all those things.
Yeah.
And I was like, so number one, I think it's going to be bigger. Number two, I enjoy it way more than those things because I just show up and do my thing. It's in the office. I get to meet guests. I get to build relationships, you know, everything. And then the third thing I did not know, that was a false belief that then confirmed it, was when, you know, he was saying that, no, actually, if you did a longer podcast, you'd be crushing. And I was like, really? Longer? I thought YouTube, like all of our shorter videos get more views. Mm-hmm. And he's like, nah, dude, like, yeah, they'll get more views early, but then they die. Mm-hmm. Look at them. He's like, but your podcast and your things that get, you know, great watch time, because you can only get so much watch time based on, shorter, yeah. you know, how long the video is. He's like, they actually, go look at them. They just keep going up over time. Mm-hmm. And then it just clicked. I was like, oh, okay. So you're saying if I only do this, which is what I want to do anyway, then it's actually better too. Then I'm done. Like, there's not even a question.
Yeah. It was a no-brainer at that point, like what you were willing to commit to and what made most sense for the platform. And we've been trying to, you know, in Creator, trying to push people to do the same thing, right? Like, you should be podcasting, you should. And I've even told people that don't podcast, like we have Levi, one of our really big, you know, creators now that's doing really big things. He doesn't necessarily podcast. And I was like, well, we got to figure out how to make these videos longer, which means making mashups of videos of tours and versus videos, this house versus this neighborhood or this neighborhood, you know what I mean? Like those type of videos that just make them longer because of the reward that we've seen from having longer videos just alone. So it's been awesome, like, to kind of see that growth and see a strategy that at first we were kind of questioning and trying to figure out actually work.
Well, let's talk about that too, because I'm used to it, but others aren't, even if they're around here. You know, like even this last 3 months, we've gone through massive changes.
For sure.
And the whole time I've been like, guys, this is about to crush. You just wait and see.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, I don't know. And then, you know, we had a lot of people jump ship and I'm like, that's all good. Did it. Mm-hmm. I don't care. And I actually wanted that. That was part of the whole process, just trying to push people out. But yeah, like even with the podcast, the results did not say that, hey, this is the best move, you know? And so I remember we sat down with you, me, Javi, Davila, and we're just, hashing this thing out. And everyone was pretty adamant of like, dude, I don't know, dude, because like this guy's doing this and that guy's doing that, and they get the most views doing this. And for me, obviously, I was the one who had to like make the content. Right. So to me, is like lifestyle was like maybe 50% of it. But the other 50% was, no, the logic makes too much sense. I was like, the logic of what he's saying, what I've seen firsthand, and what I would want as a business, aka YouTube, and just what I hear from people at our events and everything, I'm like, no, this is the path. Yeah. And the thing is, when you go down a path, it doesn't happen right away. And so even the first 3 months, right, it was like nothing really happened. And people are like, oh, well, dude, I don't know that this works and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I'm like, trust me, dude, like it's playing out exactly as we thought it would play out.
And if you fully understand the platform too, just so those that understand it, it takes, 60, sometimes 90 days to get real results. Right. So sometimes you're abandoning.
No, that's best case scenario.
Yeah. Like you're abandoning the effort that you're putting in before you even allow it to show you a result. And so that was one of the things too, where I was like, okay, there's this window here. And I was like, all right, if it's going to work, it's going to work good. And we're going to see results, around this time. But I also understand too, where when you go all in on something, how powerful that can be. Right. Like even if it's not the best strategy, if you're totally sold on it, it can still work.
Yep. I agree.
And so, 2023 taught me that. Like, right? Like, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of people doing a lot of different things. And some things over here look really shiny and like, oh man, that's working great. Some things over here look really shiny. And it's like, and then you start to look at your own, kind of situation, and you realize, no, I need to lock in on what I'm working on here and focus on that. And mine is going to be just as shiny as everyone else's. It's totally different, but still just as impactful.
Yeah.
And so I saw that a lot in 2023.
Yeah, and I think, a thing for me is that I'm observing what other people are doing, but I do not just jump ship from my ideology or faith or what I'm believing in. Yeah. I will take, like, I'm just watching and I'm like, all right, that's working pretty good. But I only think it works for him because of this.
Right.
And I'm like, or I'm just not willing to do that. So it's all good. I'm not going to go that strategy. No big deal. But I think it comes from playing in an ultra long view of like willing to just ride out the process. And so I've been in business and sports and everything long enough now that I've seen a lot of flash in the pan type people, and like they come out the gates really hot and then they're always like this, and I've just kind of watched my own life always just be, and like, are there like little things? Yeah, for sure. But there's no like catastrophic downfalls, or people think there's like a meteoric rise, but I've yet to see it. I've yet to see, like $10 million just hit my account one day, or like, 100,000 followers in a day. Like it's always just been like this. And it will continue to be that because it's a sustainable process. And people are just very short-sighted. And they don't play the long game, and they also just don't know how to deal with getting punched in the face and dealing with it and just moving on, and not like, I also just don't care.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Right. But 2023 was full of challenges, right? You've challenges in the business, challenges, in content, challenges at home. You added to the family this year. That I know how that can be, right? So that there's a challenge there. What are you taking from those challenges into 2024?
Dude, that's a good question. So right now we're doing a fast for Wealthy Kingdom. And it's funny because that's how we met. You were on a fast.
Yep.
And I, this morning, since I wasn't working out, I wrote in my journal for the first time in months. So I hadn't written in my journal for months because I've been grinding. There was nothing to write. It was like, I knew exactly what I needed to do. And for the last 3 months, I've just put my head down and just executed day in and day out relentlessly. And now that I look at it, basically like 3 months later, I'm like, damn, like that was a lot. Brian Davila came to me. He was like, man, it seems like we're moving slow, but we're actually moving really fast. And I'm like, at what point did you think things are moving slow? Yeah, like what point did you think that?
Yeah.
You know? So I'm very aware of like what things are doing and how quickly it's happening. But today I wrote down 18 things. That was all the paper could fit. And I was like, all right, I'll just do a new question now. Because I do this thing called Think Time where I ask myself a question and I'll just answer as many times as I can. And that could lead to a new thing to question. And so it goes back to questioning things a lot.
That's good.
So the thing I asked myself today was, hey, what did you learn from this year? And there's a lot of things. I don't have it with me. It'd be cool to kind of go through some of them. But, you know, one thing, at least business-wise, like I put a bunch of things, by the way, you know, business, faith, relationships. You know, you talked about relationships. One thing I put was like, man, dude, communication, like it just is so important in everything. It's so important with your spouse to let them know what's going on and what you're going through. It's so important with your staff. I mean, I learned that really hard this year of like, man, dude, like I feel like you should know this, but you don't. I've never communicated it to you. And so I'm now taking the extra effort to like, you know, spend a lot of time with people in the office and make sure they understand how they should be thinking. So communication was a big one. Business, dude, I mean, there were so many takeaways. But one thing was that, yes, in most cases, it's far more valuable to go deep in something than it is to keep thinking of all these new innovative ideas. And I got a million ideas and it's great. But I now see that, man, dude, I can go so much deeper if I apply that same energy into just going deeper into it. I also learned in business, you do need to watch the KPIs and the numbers every single day. And, you know, we haven't built that out for media yet. That's next on my agenda. It's like, you know, knocking out task after task. But, you know, now we're pretty much there in all the businesses. Like I can literally tell you how much cash we got. I can tell you how much we spent in marketing yesterday. I can tell you what my cost per lead was. I can tell you my conversion rates. I can tell you, you know, how much inventory is in the market. And like, I basically just built my own dashboard of all the most important metrics to me I want to see every single day. And that's really important because that's how you can make adjustments in real time quickly and not allow, because basically what was happening, I was getting results-based decision-making. So every quarter, I'm looking at what happened for the quarter, and I'm like, why did this happen? And it's like, I could have fixed that literally 3 months ago if I would have just known there was a problem. And so, you know, you live and you learn.
And you think that advice is for every entrepreneur and business owner, that they should be tied to that? Because, I mean, you have people and you put people in roles that should be doing that. You think it's important for you yourself to do it as well?
Well, the problem is they don't know what's important.
And that just goes back to the communication.
Yeah, and it's not their fault. It's like, once again, that's why when I ask people, hey, what do you do? It's not that I'm questioning their work ethic or anything. I'm like, do you know what's important? Because most people don't, even after they've been doing something for a long time. I don't. I ask myself, I'm like, what is the most important thing I could be doing today? And it just so happens these last 3 months, it's building out all these new processes and explaining to other people what's important. For example, I told Noelle, our CFO, my sister, I'm literally having these meetings with everybody. I'm like, Noelle, what do you think is the most important thing for the company? And she's like, to make, like, I don't know, like to make money and like to grow, you know, like normal answers. And I'm like, that's on me for not communicating what's the most important thing for you specifically to focus on. And I go, I'm going to tell you the most important thing. And so I explained to her this year, you know, last year this wasn't, or 2023, this wasn't the case, but 2024, this is the case. I go, what I am most focused on for the money side of things is, number one, getting to this amount of cash reserves. You know, we always have that and we never go past that. Okay. So that's number one. I gave her a number. And I go, number two, I'm not concerned about what our gross revenue is, which was, you know, the last couple of years our main focus. Like, hey, let's just grow. Let's grow. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's just, you got to just know what the focus is at that time. And I said, this year, 2024, I still want to grow. Don't get me wrong, but it's not going to supersede what profit margins I'm looking for. And I go, so in this business, this is the margin. This business, this is the margin. Now I want you to understand what will actually lead to these margins. And I go, we're going to have to market and generate these amount of leads at this cost in order for us to hit this margin.
Yeah.
I know what the salespeople get paid. I know what our overhead is. I've already cut cost on unnecessary softwares and all this crap we were paying for before. And, you know, but here's what I want. At the end of the day, next year, yeah, we have our revenue goals. And, you know, if we hit that revenue goal at this margin, then, you know, we'll make a lot of money.
Yeah.
I go, but I would rather not hit our revenue goal, but maintain our margin. That's what's most important to me this year. Will that be the case in 2025? I don't know.
Yeah, it
but
can change.
yeah, but I'm just telling you what it is this year, because there are companies, tech companies and everyone that literally do not care about making money. They're losing, but they're winning because their whole deal is just, hey, we're just concerned about growth and customer acquisition because we know if we get market share, we're worth X.
Right.
We don't need to make money.
Yeah.
So everyone's goals are different. And so I said, Noel, you got to know what's actually important, because I've never clearly communicated to you the most important thing I'm looking at, which this year is cash in the bank and profit margin to each company. And once you clearly take now your new constraint and your new goal, you would then say, okay, well, like, how do we get there? And so now you start redefining how you market and how you sell products and what your prices are and what's necessary, what kind of staff you need. You know, okay, this guy's getting paid this, like, how much is he contributing to that goal? You know, and you can just figure it out.
Yeah, setting goals has been something else that I've learned in my time here, like real goals. Everybody has goals that they set for themselves, but when you're setting for your team and for the company that you work for, it's a little bit different, right? Like, I think one is setting achievable goals, right? Goals that you know you can reach within the year span or the quarter span, whatever that will be. And then there's that long-term goal where it's like, how big do I want to dream for this to be, right? Do you feel that do you do both? Because I hear your short-term goals all the time, right? Like, this is what we want to do. You just described the goal for us this coming year.
Yeah.
Do you do that for the long term, and what does that look like for you?
Not really for the long term, because I just don't know where God wants to take me. There's not like, I mean, if you would ask me my long-term goal 5 years ago, I would have already hit it for like my life.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
like, well, that'd be stupid.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't have a long-term goal because I just don't know where God wants to take me. All I know is whatever God wants me to do at this certain point in my life. And, you know, I just want to do it with excellence, whatever it is. Like, I don't want to ever waste time. Like, I hate when people waste time.
Yeah.
And that's all I don't want to do is like, dude, if I could just be as efficient with my time as I am humanly capable of and everything else, then I know that wherever I end up, it doesn't matter. Like that, I literally know I did everything within my powers to get as far as whatever I got. You know, so the question then is now, how do I get smarter? How do I develop better skills? How do I get better optimizing my time? How do I take what I know and my influence and have everyone in the organization also buy in and understand and think the way I think? And that's why I've been spending so much time with it, is like, in questioning people, is because like, if we have 100 people and everyone's operating at 50% capacity, what happens if I can get everyone close to 100?
Yeah.
You know, we basically double or better. And, you know, the organization, you know, we didn't have to hire new people. We didn't have to, you know, I mean, certain people would get paid more for hitting better goals and stuff, but like, we didn't have to like go spend all this extra money and resources to, you know, get a way better result.
Yeah. That was one thing I did at the end of the year. I graded certain areas of where I was at as a leader in my position.
Yeah.
And so I looked at things like the culture, company culture.
Yeah.
Like, am I implementing what we actually represent and
Yeah.
what your vision for company culture is? I was like, and then I looked at, am I holding people accountable for and hitting certain KPIs for what it is that I'm supposed to be achieving quarter to quarter, year to year, right? And I was just grading myself. And then I also graded the company.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, culture, I can see how culture can be high on that. It's a B plus A plus, maybe even, you know what I mean? Like we do really good at creating that culture for people. I haven't heard of fights. I haven't heard people argue, and I haven't heard any of that. So I'm like, we're doing pretty good in there. And then I moved on to try to like, how's the company doing in certain areas of the business? And I was like, you know, I realized in all the conversations that we've had in the last 3 months, it's all boiled down to like our lowest grade was marketing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, even though you do so well on social media, so well on, like, that's all just a part of it. We haven't completely completed the package of marketing. And I'm seeing the changes that you're making now. And I'm realizing like, okay, yeah, this next year is going to be pretty crazy. Like this next year is going to be big for what we're doing. I say all that to say, like, what potential risks do you see in what you're implementing now for the next year?
Well, risk is relative, right? Because do I see any risk from everything I just changed from last year to this year? No, there's literally no risk.
Yeah.
You know, it's like 1,000 times better.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like, you know, when I flipped my first house and I had to max out my credit cards to do it, I'm like, there's still no risk in this because the alternative was doing nothing.
Yeah.
So it may seem like a risk, you know, running people off and, you know, doing this and that. And people will be like, dude, are you sure you want to do that? Like even, you know, once again, I have to constantly like keep training everyone else here up. Brian's like, dude, I don't know. What if we lose that person? What are we going to do? And I'm like, I don't care. Let him go.
Yeah.
Let him leave. You want me to hold the door open? I'm not chasing nobody.
Yeah.
And it's hard for him to get that and others to get that. And then, you know, they finally do it and do it and do it. And then they see like, oh, actually we're better. That's weird.
Mm-hmm.
We have less people and somehow we're better.
Mm-hmm.
How's that possible?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, exactly. Right. So, you know, you start to do that. And like right now, so I've spent months fixing the marketing department. And I mean, like I gave one example because I was getting pissed at someone the other day. And I was just like, all right, I'm just going to show you guys a fact and you just tell me, okay? Right now, it's the hardest time to market. It's December of Q4. So ad costs are higher right now than any other time of the year.
Yeah.
I picked a great time to just take over, you know.
The hardest time possible.
Yeah, and just to, you know, and people are in Christmas and other stuff, like they don't pay attention. People aren't even working because they're on vacations and whatever. I go, but I don't really care. Mm-hmm. So, you know, like we got WealthCon coming up. And this last, you know, the previous WealthCon, you know, we spent over like $200,000 to fill the room. Mm-hmm. And, you know, in an event, you make your money on the back end, like at the event, you make money. But like ticket sales, you know, most people are like happy to break even. They're like, hey, you know, we break even on ticket sales. And, you know, as long as the room got filled, it's all good. Mm-hmm. And I've always been like, well, why? Mm-hmm. That doesn't like.
It's that question again. You always ask, why?
Yeah. Why are you okay breaking even? Why, you know, well, that's industry norm. Well, do you want to be like industry normal or do you want to like be the guy exceptional?
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm just like, whatever. I don't accept that to be true. And so I take over and, you know, I've never run a Facebook ad in my life. I've watched people do it and it seems extremely complicated from what everyone kept telling me, but I don't know. It's apparently not because, you know, not only are cost per leads almost 50% less in the most expensive time, mm-hmm. but, you know, I think we're running a 3X on the ad spend right now. Mm-hmm. So we went from being a 1X to a 3X. So like we actually making a ton of money selling tickets.
Right.
And we're going to make even more at the event. And I'm just like, I laugh because I'm just like, dude, oh my gosh. Like why? And it took me looking at it for a couple of weeks to be better.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know if it's just, I don't want to say it's just me, but it just is like, I can't imagine what it's going to look like next year during a normal time with even more experience and more refinement. I'm just like, oh my gosh, dude, like this is going to be insane how big this is going to be. And like, I keep saying it in the office to people to like help them. Cause like when we first took over, like, should we just hire somebody who's done it? I'm like, no, I'm tired of these guys who've done it. They ain't that good.
Yeah.
So then, you know, we do it. And it's just, I mean, whatever. I'll let the results speak for themselves. Interview me a year from now.
Yeah, we'll talk about it again a year from now. We'll do this again. No, but I mean, if you've been here long enough, you've seen some of the crazy growth that just lagged 2022. Has there
been many times where like when I was so convicted, I'm like, no, guys, this is like, you don't get it. This is it.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to see because you don't, it's just not there. There's nothing there to see.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, I can see. And it's not like there's a difference when I hear somebody's like, no, dude, I'm going to be big one day. Mm-hmm. Well, there's not like any plan. I'm like, all right, sure, I guess. Yeah. Like, no, this is what we're going to do. X, Y, Z. This is why it's going to crush. This is how it projects out. Is it going to play out this exact way? No.
Yeah.
But this is actually like, this will work.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's just how it goes, man. Like, there's visionaries for a reason, and there's integrators for a reason, and not everybody can have that foresight to be able to see what works, right? When you're like, I don't understand why you didn't see it. It's just everybody's not built and kind of made that way. This is why it's important, though, for those individuals that are a part of a team or working within an organization. It's important to make sure that you're on the right train.
Yeah.
Right. And I think about that when I see that people leave. I'm like, wait, you just put 4 years of your life into this.
Yeah.
And you don't want to stick through the tough part. Like this is the part that's gonna make or break everything. But you know what I mean? Like so for me, and I guess too, it just a lot of that has to do with background and what people have experienced in the past. I'm like, bro, I know what the mud feel like. So this right here don't even feel that bad. I'm like, we're gonna get through this. Like we're gonna figure all these things out. And what's gonna turn into long term is what I'm excited for.
Well, it's all perspective, right? So, like you said, you know what the mud feels like. I know what it's like to literally play for 8 years, making $7,000 a year, and I'm like, you think you were broke and that you got it tough? Like, give me a break, dude.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, perspective changes things, but also you can have a negative perspective because you're entitled. And that was what I was trying to get rid of in the company is like the last bunch of years, there are people who have had it actually very easy and have done really well. And they never had to get punched in the face. Mm-hmm. And it's like, all right, you know what? Let me see how strong your belief is in what we do. What happens if I take away all the leads? Mm-hmm. You think I'm going to take away leads forever? Mm-hmm. If you bail after a month, it tells me everything I need to know about your belief.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you're a bad guy. Doesn't mean that, you're soft. Well, you're probably soft, but it doesn't mean that, I don't like you or it just means that, hey, it took one bad month for you to like really, be there at that place. And so it just tells me a lot about people and it's fine. That's all good. And one thing I've had to learn the hard way is that, the people that help you get to a certain point aren't always the people that actually they're more than likely not going to be the people for the next level. Mm. Very few people are willing to keep getting better and growing and adapting and, getting to that next level. Mm. And it's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so, if you're somebody in an organization, it's like, yo, you better be leveling up too. Because if the company is growing, you are not entitled to grow with the company.
Right.
Like you better just keep stepping up or maybe your position just stays what it is, which is, still okay in some regards. But, if somebody else has to come in now above you, can you handle that thinking that, oh, well, that should have been mine. I helped the company. No, you didn't. You sure did help the company get there, but you didn't grow to become that person that the company now needs.
Yeah. And I don't think Pineda Company is shy of the opportunity at all.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's always opportunity to grow in every aspect. And so I've had like side conversations with people and I'm like, look, you got a choice to make here. Right? Like things are going to shift. We're going to adjust. Things are going to be different. You got to be okay with some change.
Yeah.
And you got to find where your place is, right? Like find how you can benefit the company the most and then opportunity will come. Yeah.
That's it. It's literally that. And I got super encouraged, because as I've gotten really back into it, because like people don't realize this, but I'm a much more of an operator than I am a freaking social media guy.
Yeah.
And I spent the last bunch of years being a social media guy, learning that, which in reality was being an operator because I had to be an operator in a media company
Yeah.
to learn how the media game is run. And so I spent years doing that. And then I came back as an operator into the overall business.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, all right, this is how XYZ needs to happen. You're not holding your weight. You need to change this. You need to do that. We're all going to do this. I'm personally going to be doing these things now that you've never seen me do before because I've never needed to because I was busy, doing a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at the end of the day, I just have realized like I like being an operator and a business guy. And now going back to efficiency, the most efficient and impactful thing I can do is be, into the business, building out all these foundational pieces that are going to make everything explode.
Yeah. And from my 3 years here, I feel like every so often it takes that, right? It takes you getting back in it, getting everything like, and just kind of implementing your vision to it so that we can implement and, start getting things going. So,
well, Gary Harper talks about it. He says the visionary needs to come back and re-innovate, when there's big shifts.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, we just went through a big recession. What's the visionary going to do to re-innovate? And, you just see I'm basically re-innovating like 5 things at once. And so you'll see me one day in the education side doing all these things. You'll see me the next day over at Home Run Offer. And I'm like, hey, you know how we used to we're like one of the top dogs in Vegas? I don't care anymore. We're going to go nationwide and we're going to actually take focus away from Vegas. And they're like, oh, but dude, we were just getting momentum after a tough year and it's going to get tough to get people to buy in and, all this stuff. And I'm like, trust me, I understand, but this is what we're doing.
Yeah. And it didn't matter when you made that shift. It still go feel like the right time. It doesn't.
No, and I go, this is the path. And I go, it's crystal clear that there's a far better path, we're just going to do it. As painful as it may be. And if people want to leave on the way, it's all good. Yeah. But you know what's crazy? Even about Home Run Offer, and that's why I have so much respect for that team because, it's the longest standing company.
Yeah.
It's endured the most different things, right? They just went through the hardest struggle in real estate. We had basically no turnover and everybody just banded together and wrote it out. And here we are.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see because once again, they basically have perspective. They've been through it. Whereas other people who have only seen, the good times, like they're just like, oh, change. Those guys, they're like, oh, Ryan's changing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, okay, here we go again. It's
here we go.
Shift. Yeah.
So, and, even with Home Run Offer, it's like, I'm so excited about that company. I actually think that company is going to be bigger than all of them.
Really? Mm-hmm. Okay. That's exciting because there's a lot that comes from Home Run Offer when it's up.
Well, it's just like, I look at the skills we have today and what I'm building in the marketing and sales department. And, Home Run Offer, basically what it comes down to is the last just 5+ years, it's just been like, yeah, we'll do like our 100 deals a year and it's all good. And the reason was, number one, it's a lot of risk to do more deals. Number two, every time I've ever tried to spend more money on TV ads or marketing, it never produces it. It just stops.
Yeah, it's no real impact.
Yep. And so I'm like, could I figure out a way to scale it and maybe do a new market or whatever? Sure, I could, but that's brain power away from something else that can be scaled bigger and easier. So, I just kind of let it be what it's always been. And it's been fine. But now with everything available today, it's a different story. It's like, okay, we got new softwares and AI. I have new marketing abilities to be able to go nationwide and get seller leads for extremely cheap. We have the ability to wholesale nationwide because of things like Investor Lift and everything else. And I'm like, holy crap. I was like, this is insane how much we're going to make and we have the partner program. And I go, we've already got like $200,000 of deals in the partner program. That's free. Yeah. They cost me $0 to get,
right.
And it was the partner program that sparked it. And then it was me getting in the marketing department that helped me even see it more. I was like, dude, we are about to kill it. Because even from a business perspective, you know, let's just say we spend $500 to get one lead on TV or PPC here in Vegas. And we know that we can close, you know, 1 out of 10. And that's been the historical average. And we know that, you know, we're going to go probably make $25K on a wholesale from those deals, $30K, right? So, you know, on average, you could get like a 4 to 5X. That's basically where we've always hovered at. And sometimes cost per lead is up and, you know, it's like $700-800 a lead and, you know, it all just kind of mass out. But we've always been like fine with a 4 to 5X. And then every time we try to spend more, it just keeps going down. Well, with Facebook ads and everything now, I can generate leads for like $20. And so you start taking that and you're like, wow, Home Run Offers used to getting like 100 leads a month. And at the same budget, I can get 2,000 leads. Now, like, let's just do the math again. It's like, all right, let's say out of the 2,000 leads, I only close 1 out of 20. You know, not 1 out of 10. Well, that's 100 deals a month. And you're like, okay, well, you need more salespeople, obviously, and dispo people, but, you know, what can our average assignment fee be? And you're like, well, maybe it's less because it's not Vegas, but if it's $20K, which is pretty much what we've been getting everywhere, that's $2 million a month. And I spent $50K in marketing. Your margins are insane. And it's only because it's a totally different business model. It's tech. Oh, and by the way, I don't have to flip a house and get contractors and raise money and take risk. Because this last year I had all these flips and I had to lose millions of bucks out of my own pocket, you know, selling them off. And so you look at that and then you look at the scalability of it and it's like, well, no, yeah, I can keep spending because it's not capped to just Vegas. I'm everywhere. I could spend $1 million a month. It's just a matter of, could I get enough sales? Like, so the market cap is there and you're like, all right, I mean, if I spend $1 million a month, that's 20X times what we're doing. So now you go, you know, 20X of 100 deals and you're like, that you could be doing 1,000 deals a month. Like now you're making over 9 figures. Like those are possible. It's just impossible in Vegas. But you see this whole new model that is totally within reach. And when I say within reach, it's far away. But it's possible. And the path is obvious on how to get there. I'm like, all right.
Here we go. No, again, like you say all of that, and some people are going to hear that and go, no way, right? Like, no way. But then again, that's that limited mindset, man. Like, this is going to happen, right? This is going to happen. And
it already has in my mind.
A year from now, we'll be talking about, remember we said this, remember this was going to go. And I think the same is going to happen with your personal branding. I think this next year, and this has been my prediction all year, right? Like, there's going to be a separation between the individuals that communicate really well and are upfront and really shiny right now, hot right now. But there's going to be a separation from the real business individuals that are doing it at a high level versus those that are just talking about it. Right? And I think it's going to be really noticeable in 2024 because I think 2023 was really hard for some people. And
you're going to see what they went through in 2024.
Oh yeah, you don't see it the same year. You always see it the following year on what happened because there's going to be a lot of dialing back from some people that have been kind of imposters in the field. And it's funny, man. Like I'm outside looking in, right? Like because I get to stand next to you and travel with you and hear all these conversations, and I'm like, yeah, that ain't sounding right. Like something about that just doesn't sound real. And then, because I'm hearing it's so different from what other people who are doing it is saying is happening. And so I'm like, yeah, 2024 is going to be very interesting. And so I think you, as a personal brand, the way that you've been able to innovate and withstand a year like that, it's going to shine in 2024 because of all the new things that you're implementing. So it's going to be big. It's going to be big. 2024 is going to be very interesting and very big. I'm excited for it. Just as, you know, a producer and a director over the Pineda media, because I think it's going to grow in every aspect. Like I'm already seeing Brian's at Wealthy Investor, his stuff starting to kind of.
If he can grow, let that be a lesson that anyone can grow.
Be encouraged, right?
Well, you know what I told you guys too earlier this year? You guys were like, dude, how do we grow you quicker? Remember we were saying that?
Yep.
And this was all part of the podcast decision and everything. I go, guys, honestly, I don't think it's really possible. And maybe it's a limiting mindset for me, but I was like, I think we're pretty much doing everything we can. And I was like, I think we just stay with the path. And I think what's going to help us grow is when I get better at business.
Yeah.
I was like, as my business grows, the personal brand will grow.
Yeah. It's inevitable.
Because I'm just going to talk about different things. I'm going to have different people. Like I'm going to be in you just get better.
Yeah.
And so I don't need to do better edits and all this stuff. Yeah, it's going to help. But the biggest reason things will grow is because I just personally get better. And it shines through in the content.
Yeah.
It's stuff that people cannot just see anywhere else.
Yeah.
It becomes unique and it's like, dude, no, like the way he talks about productivity, like Omar was saying, you need to go on the productivity path. We've talked a lot about productivity today. And it's like, where else are you hearing these concepts?
Yeah, no, doesn't exist. Because it's not real for other people, right? Like, and again, that's going to be that separation, right? The productivity. I want to move on because we've talked content, we've talked of business, and I want to get into a little bit of the personal, the Ryan Pineda, the person, not the brand.
Okay.
But the person, like I said.
They're the same, but yeah.
Like I said, we've had the pleasure now for at least 2.5 of the 3 years I've been around to kind of be shoulder to shoulder, traveling together, doing some of everything. And I mean, for me personally, I can say I'm so grateful for the experiences. Right, like some of the stuff. It's funny. You would not believe what perception is for like people from back home that know me. Like the glitter that they see online of what I'm doing. Right, like I'm getting text messages like, "Do you all fly private everywhere you go?" Like, you know what I mean? But I've had that pleasure, man. Just for me personally, like I've had that pleasure of sitting in Ed Milet's living room and listening to him speak. I've had the pleasure of flying private with you, Bradley, and other entrepreneurs that are doing things at high levels and getting that experience. I've had the pleasure of having Brandon Turner in office and talking to a group that he's brought in, right? Like these are all things that I'm like, I don't know how this came about. I don't know how I'm in this situation from just starting as an editor, but I'm here now and I'm going to own it and I'm going to take responsibility and do what God is leading me to do for it. And on top of all of that, I'm capping everything off with an appearance on the main stage at an event now. And so I'm super appreciative of the opportunity, but I also don't take it for granted. I don't take the responsibility for granted. So I want to get into like on a personal level, Ryan Pineda, because I can't imagine just yet the understanding of having all of these employees, having all these individuals. They're dependent on your leadership and what you have to do. It's not like the Mickey Mouse and the you're not the mouse where like that's a corporation where they're not, you're just an employee. You're a number at that point when you work for something like that.
Yeah.
These are individuals working for you that actually have real relationships with. Like I'm pretty sure that my wife was at your house yesterday while we were here with Mindy and spending time, like real relationships with. So I'm wondering, how do you deal with that type of pressure and that responsibility?
I would say 2 reasons or 2 ways. So the first way is selfish. So I would say that my standard for myself and what I need to do for me is so much higher than what I even care about for you guys that like it's you guys are going to be fine.
Yeah.
Because like for me, it's just like, dude, I refuse to allow myself to become this way. I refuse to allow the company to do this revenue or to put out this low of content quality. Like my standards are just so high for myself and the company that we're going to succeed and win. So like everyone else is a byproduct. If a company wins, they're all going to win too.
Right.
So just from a selfish perspective, there's not really pressure that I feel from you guys. It's internal for me. And as a byproduct, you guys end up being fine. So there's that. I think on the less selfish side, which comes from faith, because for me growing up, right, I think I was a very selfish person, playing sports and just worried about me and baseball and my career. And, I wasn't worried about nothing else really. I think on, the faith side and just knowing that obviously life is short and this world is going to end, and, eternity is way longer than how, long we are here on this earth. And so it's like, it becomes crystal clear to me that like, man, the people are what matters. And what am I doing every day to impact people? And it becomes even more clear once you've already, made it and you have everything you could ever want. It's like, what have I not bought that I wanted? Like I have it.
Yeah.
And so you just think about that and, it's like, yeah, I've been having a tough year. It's like, I don't know, dude. Like, yeah, I have relative to the previous years, but, still made 7 figures. I still, got some pretty good assets and
a tough year for you is different than a tough year.
Yeah.
From
So
others.
like it sucks, but it is what it is. But, so you start thinking about, okay, well, when you're taken care of and your family and everyone around you is taken care of, what's next? Well, you start realizing that, man, I got to go like take care of the rest of the world. It's like, man, why am I doing Wealthy Kingdom? It's a big undertaking. It's like, well, dude, I have to do Wealthy Kingdom. It is a need. God has put it on my heart. I have to do this, And it's kind of like this compounding thing, man. It's like, man, okay, we just started to re-change the culture around faith. And then all of a sudden people are getting saved. People are going to church. Like the people who don't like that stuff are leaving.
Right.
That's fantastic. So you start to just like see all these things happening and it just encourages you to keep at it. And I was thinking about this actually in the shower this morning. So somebody we know is kind of going through a rough spot in marriage. And, I was just thinking about why that happens. And it usually happens from selfishness. And it's like, well, one person doesn't want to serve or both don't want to serve each other. And that's pure selfishness. And I started to think about why that happens and why people are so consumed with only their perspective on a matter. Because when you're trying to talk to somebody who is selfish about, an issue, they literally cannot hear you.
Can't receive it.
They can't receive it because they're so only thinking about themselves and their feelings and their problems. And maybe they're justified, but they still have no empathy to be able to see the other person's point of view. And so I think for me, one thing that I guess has made us successful and why I still have a successful marriage after 10 years is because for some reason or another, God gave me the ability to be, I don't want to even say empathetic, but to just truly see both sides of everything. Like I'd like to think I'm very impartial. Like I can take my feelings, everything out of the equation and say, that's how they feel. I understand why they feel that way. I understand how my actions did this. Yeah, I know like why I did it and why I thought that was the right thing to do, but I understand how they took it that way. And, now how do we solve it?
Yeah.
Because I understand the full picture of what's happening. And I've always been that way when I'm making a deal in real estate. I can understand what the seller is doing and what is going to actually make them want to do this deal because I understand their position. And it doesn't mean that I just give them everything they want. It means that, okay, I understand where you're at. How do I fit what my needs are with what you want and need?
Yeah.
And if I first think of you and then I can redirect, okay, how do I formulate this to make it make sense? Then boom, I already know you're going to do the deal because I can think, would I do the deal if I was this person? Absolutely. This is a no-brainer.
Right.
And so I do that with employees. And that's why I ask the hard questions of, dude, so like, where are you trying to go? What do you want to be? And I put myself in their shoes and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, they're obviously going to take this offer. This is the best case. It's like if I would, take it 3 years ago, I'm looking at Justin's life and I'm like, okay, this is literally how my brain works. I'm like, okay, so he's working this armor truck thing. He hates it. He's got a lot of pain. His wife, he's hungry. He's never been given an opportunity. He literally, honestly, he'll probably work for free. I mean, that's already in my mind. I'm like, he would work for free. I guarantee it. If I told him to work for free, he would do it. Now, what is going to be best for him though, to get the most out of him and like create the most long-term thing? And it's like, all right, well, if I can get him out of the job, he's going to already be it. So I already know he only makes this at the job. So that's easy. Okay. But what after that? Because that's just a temporary win.
Right.
And then, you start to see, okay, these are his goals. And you weren't thinking as big at the time as, how you think today.
Not at all.
But I'm like, okay, that's where he's at right now. Okay. I can easily provide all those things.
Yeah.
If he's willing to do the things I need him to do, which are way easier than what he currently does and way more fulfilling. I'm like, so this is easy. All right, here's what we're going to do. And like, it took how I just explained that takes a split second versus how it all formulates. But I'm like, all right, I'm not, because if I was just purely greedy and about me and what's best for me, I could have said, hey, Justin, here's what we're going to do, bro.
Right.
Do these and just get them done. It's better than what you got going on.
Yep. And that's it.
And that's it. You stay doing that. And I'll give you, $1,000 to go edit these. And you would have did it. And that's how other people had treated you to that point too.
Right.
And I know that that's how entrepreneurs and business people, they just try to get the best deal for themselves every time. But I just kind of always look at it and I think about the long term of it. And I'm like, all right, I could win the battle and maximize the battle, or I could play for, world domination.
Yeah.
So which one?
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. And I think too, like, that's why, again, there's people here that have been here from the jump. And then there's people here that like you're seeing a different person, right? Because there's times where like I feel like a different person than when I came in, right? Like I would hope you would. I'm totally different from that individual. Like even starting this podcast, right? Those first episodes, like having some of the, like there were individuals that were coming to do yours that just said okay to sitting down with me. And in my mind, I'm like, you got no reason to be here right now. Like, right. But I begin to understand that, no, Justin, what you've been able to not only accomplish, but learn from somebody that's doing it at a high level, others that are doing it at a high level. Because I'm not the type to just be in the room either, right? Like there's a lot of conversations that I was listening to that I'm basically eavesdropping on what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
But I'm always trying to take in as much information that I can because I know that it's going to be valuable somewhere else to someone else. And so I purposely go about it that way. And now I'm realizing, no, okay, this person is doing it at a way higher level than me and whatever their profession is. But I got something that I can offer now, right? Just because of what I learned. And so I've seen you do that over and over again, like the way down speaking of hiring people, but even the way that you kind of coach. It's like, no, dude, like when you do those one-on-ones, I'm like, the way that he just broke apart your whole thing and then put it all back together that gives you something that you can apply right away. I'm like, yeah, that's also what I want to gain that skill and get good at, right? Like just direction in that type of form. Yeah.
I think I've thought a lot about that too. And you guys probably keep hearing this think and question. I spend a lot of time thinking and questioning. Like I like being alone. So, part of my thing is like every morning, I like working out. I like golfing.
Yeah.
I like doing these things alone, because I think a lot. And, value it. Mindy and I were talking about this on Monday. Or no, that was Tuesday. I was like, yeah, she's like, how was it, today, first day back? Did you get a lot done? And she was like, kind of like, she wasn't joking because we never like talk about all the stuff.
Yeah.
But she knows I've been just obviously working on stuff. I was like, babe, you have no idea. Just freaking, you got to deal with it.
It'll take a day to tell you everything.
Just dealing with these knuckleheads. I don't even want to relive it. So she's like, yeah, I heard, some guy was talking crap and, making these fake reels and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, I didn't even tell you. I forgot about that.
That was like the smallest thing.
I was like, I don't even, I forgot. Yeah, that did happen. She's like, what? Like, I'm like, I just told him he's an idiot. And like, that was it. And that was kind of it. And he refused to see the error in his ways and it's fine, whatever, you know? So, and I just moved on with my life. My life is the same. Weird.
Nothing changed.
Yeah. So why am I going to stress about it? But what made me think about that? I don't even remember what your original question was.
I don't know how we got there because there's so much we can say about that.
Oh, no, but we were talking about skills and dissecting things. And so it made me think about, what creates value in the world, and you get paid based on how valuable you are. So I've said it before that you don't like how much you make. Well, get better, become more valuable. You know, you are not equal to this person. I don't care what you think or what your mom told you. You're not. Okay. You would make what they make if you guys were equal.
All right.
So they obviously have a more valuable skill than you do. Okay. And you might say, well, I'm better than them. Okay. Well, they were more resourceful in finding somebody who was willing to pay them for that skill.
Yeah.
So that's a different type of skill, being resourceful and hustling and figuring it out. You might be a better editor and they're getting paid more than you because they're a hustler.
That's it.
Or they know they're a better negotiator. Like they have a different skill that paid them more money, right? So I thought about, why would people want to come to my office and do a podcast with me on my own or on their own dime, take time out of their day to fly to me from all these random places, and to your point, even come sit here with you.
Yeah.
Right? Like very famous people making 9 figures plus and all this stuff. And I just started to think about it, and I was like, what do I have to offer that like is such a valuable skill that they're willing to come and, you know, learn from? And I just started to like list off my skills, and I was like, okay, what am I better at than almost everyone in the world? And oh yeah, this is why I was going to bring up Mindy. And I was like, all right, you know, I was a better baseball player than most people in the world at one point. I am a better real estate investor than most people in the world. I'm a better content creator than most people in the world. I am a better business owner than most people in the world. I don't know how the best way to say this, but I was going to say I'm a better Christian than most people. I'm more biblically, I have a better grasp on theology.
There you go.
And,
that sounds better.
You know, like just being like starting Wealthy Kingdom and Bible studies, whatever you want to call it, right? You know, I think I'm a better dad and a better, you know, husband than most. And, you know, so I just started, and it's not to like toot my own horn. I was just like being real. I'm like, you know, I'm going to be a better golfer than most people in the world. I can definitely hit a golf ball further than almost everyone in the world. And so I'm just like, all right, that's a lot of skills. And I've said it before on the podcast, but I'm like, in 2024, my goal is to become one of the best digital marketers in the world. I've said it multiple times because I'm like, if I go fix that over there, home run offer is going to crush, they're all going to crush, and it's going to lead to all these new opportunities. Like that's the next skill I got to master, is getting deep in there. And I'm like, it'll take me not very long.
Yeah.
Like I'm just going to do it because I know how to learn.
Yeah.
And in a month, I brought in so many digital marketing experts here. And why did they come to my office, you know, and freely taught my team everything they know? And they're literally doing stuff for me for free. Well, number one, they're like, I'm accelerating everything I need to know about digital marketing and sales.
Yeah.
These guys charge, you know, 6 figures to go do stuff and learn and take equity in your company and do it but they're doing it for free. Yeah. Why? Because I have things of value for them that's actually even more valuable than what they're giving me. They're getting exposure on the podcast. They're seeing the inner workings of how I run the business. They're, you know, whatever it is they want to know from me, I'm telling them too.
They're getting it, yeah.
You know, so like, you know, if you can make yourself more valuable, it just keeps compounding on itself. And so like, Mindy and I were having dinner, and I was just telling her, like, I was just laughing. I'm like, yeah, so, you know, I've been a digital marketer now for a couple of weeks, and these are the results. We're pretty much killing it. And she's like, of course. And I was like, I don't know why they say it so hard. I don't get it. And she was like, well, yeah. And you said it too. She's like, well, of course you don't get it, but like, that's just how, like, I don't know, normal people are.
Hey man, favor ain't fair.
Yeah.
I heard that from a good friend
Jordan
of ours.
Yeah. And I was like, I really don't get why it's so hard, but okay. But then I was just thinking about it, and I started just we were talking about some of our most successful friends, and I was like, man, you know, if you could just master one skill, dude, you're like amazing. And your life is good. You know, you learn how to do real estate. That's it. That's all you need to learn. You learn how to be a great media producer. That's it. You don't need to learn anything else. You learn how to become a great athlete. That's it. You're good. You don't need to learn anything else. And so, you know, to learn so many skills at like a world-class level is not normal, and I don't know anyone else who's done it. But also, it gives you the ability to relate to so many different people and to help everyone.
Yeah.
Because now I can literally help everyone. Oh, you want to learn how to do business? Oh, you want to learn real estate? Okay, cool. Oh, you want to learn content?
Can help it.
That's cool. And oh, you're having a tough time because you don't understand faith? Well, let me tell you the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, your marriage is going through a rocky patch? Well, let me help you there. And but we were just talking about like some of our most successful friends, and I'm like, think about so and so. Like they're so good, yet they're just having such a rough time right now.
Mm-hmm.
And like they're one of the smartest people we know, and it's like, dang, like that they're so good, yet they're struggling so bad because their one skill right now isn't like good for the timing and the market, or they didn't adapt their skill with the world changing and technology and how the world like their skill is no longer as valuable as it once was.
Right. Yeah. And again, that goes back to just continuous growth. Right.
You gotta learn.
Just never settle. Right.
Yeah.
Never settle. And learning, I used to think learning was something that like you can be taught, but learning is just more of something that you have to want. Right. Like, you have to want to learn it, like truly learn it. Like even when it came to media, I was no expert at social media or anything like that. I hadn't done it for myself.
Yeah.
Right. But when I knew that this was the place I was going to, it's all studying. Right. Like I could tell you a lot of what your favorite creators are doing, in the next couple, months to try to see if it will work because of how much information I'm just intaking daily on what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Right. That's my job. Right. To figure it out. So, it's one of those things where you got to want to learn. And when you want to learn, you take in that information and then you start applying that information and you see results. That's kind of like that bottom line. So some of those friends that you're mentioning, again, they haven't adjusted because of something working so good for them. There's almost a complacency in that.
Well, even that, now you've been around me long enough to know that like, even with a lot of those people, I called them out on it way before. I'm like years prior, I'm like, hey, you better do this because it ain't going to be like this forever.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, dude, like, you better do this. You're going to feel the pain if you don't. And, it's just essentially complacency of like, oh, well, dude, I freaking, this is going to, you see it with athletes all the time. Dude, I'm going to freaking make money. And then they're broke.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Your skill's no longer relevant because you're old.
Right.
You're no longer getting paid for it.
Right.
They don't have foresight.
Yeah. So Ryan, is there anything as far as personal growth that you see doing for yourself in the next season? You spoke about communication a little bit earlier and getting better as a communicator with your company, but what else personally are you looking to improve on?
Well, one that I didn't expect this year was health. I was like, I've been complacent, because I was in good shape. And then now this year, like, I got pretty freaking jacked from the peptides and stuff.
Peptides, yeah.
And I opened myself up to this new world, and I'm like, I used to be resistant to it. I didn't understand it. And I was like, all right, let me try it. And now I'm like, I don't even know where my health's going to go until like, I might be super jacked. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
might be competing.
Yeah, I don't know. But maybe I'll finally be a model.
Yeah.
So
We've been calling
Calvin Klein. So with Mindy wouldn't let me, but if they paid me enough, you never know.
It's a number on everything, right?
There's a number. I would say this year, it may not sound like it because I was just talking about how great I am, but this year humbled me a lot. And I think the biggest thing it humbled me on was really paying attention to like detail. And the only way to pay attention to detail is to spend time on it. And Mindy's biggest criticism, and everyone in this office knows, I don't like to do that. And I'm like, I'm a snapshot kind of guy. And that serves you good for like 90% of decision making. It's like, bro, let me see this. Okay, no, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
But yes, that can get you to a certain level. But to go truly deep with somebody or something, you have to like, every little detail matters. That's the difference between, being great and being the best.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think intentionality with details is like the big personal growth thing I'll have. And that literally applies to everything. So that applies to, hey, okay, in health, what exactly am I putting into my body every day? What are my macros? Like, what's the detail? What's actually in this fruit roll-up that I like eating? You know, in the business side, we talked about looking at the KPIs every day, understanding the important numbers that we need to know. Okay, we know that.
Yeah.
Okay, with people. Okay, what are the little things that I'm missing with my wife that will make our relationship so much better? Yeah. Have I sat down and really thought about, hey, she really likes when I do X. Hey, this is something that really stresses her out. How do I take this off her plate? Because like the employees, like I just said, she probably does not know how to fix it. And if I actually just thought about it,
you figure it out. I
would fix it. And I just haven't paid attention to it because guess what? Our relationship's good. So like, how much more detail do I want to put into it to make it even better?
Yeah.
And the same is true with you and Javi and Davila. And it's like, all right, I assigned you guys to go out there and podcast. I haven't trained you guys at all. I'm just like, guys, start your podcast and do it. Yeah. That's step one. Okay. Now that we got some, experience, now let's get into the detail and say, okay, Brian, you're boring. What are you going to do? Why are you boring? Why?
Ask the why question all the time.
Why do you think nobody watches? Why do you think this episode did good? Why did this do bad? Because he doesn't know.
Right.
He doesn't know why. But if I can take all the experience and everything I have now, because I've done so many more and talked to so many people, I can say, no, this is actually why.
Yeah.
But that's one thing that we always do as a company is that I never give the answer. I always say, why? Why do you think that? What do you think we should do? I already know the answer half the time.
Yeah.
It's just, I want you to like go through the thought process of how to get to the answer. And, if you get to the answer, even better. I don't even need to tell you that. I already knew that was like, now you thought of it.
Right.
Great. But if you didn't, then it's like, help you get there because then, whatever. And then also, I don't even want to say that this is a rare occasion because it does happen quite a bit. By having it go that way instead of just telling you what to do, you actually say something that I'm like, whoa.
I might do that. Yeah.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked why.
Yeah.
Because I would have just said, hey, let's do this. And you guys most likely would have been like, that's a good idea. We'll do that. And then I didn't give the freedom to debate and explore and, riff over just a new idea.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, Ryan. Any final thoughts for the Wealthy Creator community and those that are watching or listening?
We're actually about to blow Wealthy Creator up. I was reinventing that for 2024. And one thing I said was, I was like, hey, how do we make the community better? I'm asking a question to everybody. We're having a meeting. And I'm like, how do we make it better? And, we thought about it. And we said, okay, well, we're going to do 5 calls a week. And we're going to have different subjects. And I said, what are the biggest problems the creators face?
Yeah.
And, Kate, you talked about these different problems they face. And just getting started in mindset's like a number one problem.
Yep.
And like for me, I'm just like, wait, what?
Yeah. Like they join Creator and they're having trouble with their mindset and making content.
Yeah, like, dude, make the content. We telling you how to make the content. So now it's like, hey, Monday, we're going to have our mindset call with Kate. And Kate's like the ultimate encourager. Yeah. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just like, bro, make the content.
Yeah, just do it.
You paid the money. You have the camera. You have the mic.
You got everything you need.
Film it.
Just do it.
But she'll be like, I don't know. She's got a different way going about it.
Yeah,
that'll get a different result, right?
Yeah.
And then, the call reviews and the monetization and the strat. So, we're going to make it the most robust program we can. And, that's my biggest advice to creators. And, another thing too, it's like, we have clients who we edit for and stuff, but one thing I decided was like, we're going to get away from that because of 2 reasons. One, most people who are serious about this want to build their own team anyway.
Right.
And then number 2, it's just a headache. Like it's just, once again, you look at the time that it takes and is that the best use of time and being worth it? It's like, no, it's not. So, it's like going back to, all right, you know what? Let's just consult. Let's help people build their own teams because they want that anyway. And it's like, you ask yourself the question of why? Why would we try and just keep doing it for stuff when it's just like harder and harder and you get people who expect the world or you get people who, just are very picky and want it a certain way and it doesn't fit within the system that you've created. And you're just like, dude, you know what? It's not even worth it. Like, let's just go back to what we already know works.
Right.
But, does it mean it's a mistake or anything? No. It just means you learn and you're like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. No, for sure. Well, Ryan, I ain't gonna hold you up. I know you're busy. I know you got things to do. I appreciate you, man.
Yep. Appreciate you, bro.
Dude, like everything. Like, most of all, I appreciate the relationship that we have over anything else. So
and it's just getting started.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's just getting started.
We taking it up. It's up all 2024.
You just keep getting more responsibility.
Yes, sir. All right. It's been another episode of Wealth Creator. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like, comment, give me all that support. I appreciate you all, and I'll check you on the next one.
Go subscribe.
Subscribe.